But the Camon series is Tecno's best camera smartphone model, and I believe this is the major reason why most of you will want to buy the Camon 16 Premier, especially when it has a large 48 megapixel dual front cameras and a larger 64 megapixel quad rear cameras, powered by the flagship Sony IMX686 64 megapixel sensor coupled with the powerful 64 megapixel image signal processor of the Helio G90T and Tecno's AI camera algorithm TAIVOS. Images coming out from the 64 megapixel lens are quite impressive with good details, and when you zoom all the way in, you still get some glimpse of useful details. One of the importance of using the Sony IMX686 64 megapixel sensor is that you always get colors that are accurate and true to life, especially for human subjects. Despite the fact that it has an f1.9 aperture size, the light exposure level and dynamic range is quite good, but would have been much better if it had a bigger f1.8 aperture size. The 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens has some significant field of view with surprisingly good level of exposure and high dynamic range, despite having a smaller f2.2 aperture, but the colors are a little bit not true to life. But the ultra-wide angle lens images have lesser details as expected. The higher 8 megapixel camera lens is also responsible for taking macro shots, which makes the image quality and level of details of the super macro shots clearer and sharper, even at closer range and in low light environment. The 2 megapixel depth lens assists the 64 megapixel in taking good bokeh shots, and the edge detection is actually very good with little or no error. It still keeps some level of details thanks to the higher megapixels. It even does a good job with non-human subjects, like this bicycle we have here in a low light environment. It is nice to see Tecno stepping up their camera game. This is a good improvement from the Camon 15 series. Low light or indoor shots from the rear cameras are quite impressive, with noticeable details but still have some noise as expected. Overall, having a higher 64 megapixel camera lens paired with the Sony sensor makes low light photos much better. Tecno's AI camera algorithm TAIVOS does a good job when it comes to taking extreme low light photos thanks to the super night mode technology. This is also a good improvement from the Camon 15, although it's not yet at Google Pixel level in very dark situations, but you can always run to the bright Penta Red flash LEDs to save you during extreme dark conditions. The beauty mode shots are also good, although it is not 100% complete smoothing process, but it still does a good job. At the front is a dual selfie camera, having a large 48 megapixel main lens. Having a larger 48 megapixel camera lens at the front is a good advantage and satisfaction for the selfie lovers because there's more details and sharpness in the photos, although the exposure level is not too good in daylight because of the smaller f2.2 aperture size with no RGB sensor, which affects the dynamic range, but the zooming advantage is a very good and useful compensation. Despite having a smaller f2.2 aperture size, photos taken with the 8 megapixel ultra wide angle selfie lens appears to have better exposure levels and higher dynamic range when compared to the 48 megapixel camera lens, which is thanks to the presence of an RGB sensor, but the details still suffers as expected. Low light or indoor photos from the front cameras are quite impressive with noticeable details but still have some noise as expected. Overall, having a higher 48 megapixel camera lens makes low light photos much better. Portrait shots from the single 48 megapixel camera lens are pretty decent, but the smaller f2.2 aperture size affects the light exposure level, which results in a whitish blurred background during daylight, but it gets better in a low light environment with less background light. Apart from the higher level of details, this is a step down from the Camon 15 series with bigger aperture size. Hopefully a software update will fix it. Unfortunately, Tecno did not put much effort in super night mode of the selfie camera lens because the results are not impressive. This just looks like a beauty mode filter, but it is nice that we still get a clearer image result. I would prefer you just use the adjustable dual selfie flash LED instead, which does a better job in giving you better images in low light or at night. The front camera beauty mode shots are also good, although just like the rear cameras, it is not a 100% complete smoothing process, but it still does a good job. Thanks to the Helio G90T processor, both the front and back cameras support up to 4K at 30 frames per second, but the electronic image stabilization only works at 1080p 30 frames per second. Although 1080p at 60 frames per second gives smoother video movements, but it's a little bit zoomed in, which affects the quality. I am impressed with the 4K Rev camera video quality. Exposure levels are good, high dynamic range is also good, and colors are true to life and usable for some cool sporting actions. Nice job, Tecno. Hello supermobile fans, this is the front camera video and audio test of the Tecno Camon 16 Premier. I'm recording right now in 4K 30 frames per second. I can see my background is overexposed, but it's keeping focus on my face. Let me know what you think about the audio and video quality. Live focus or bokeh video mode is a surprise addition to the Tecno Camon series. I am impressed with the performance, but still needs some improvements. It is a nice feature to use for creating cool videos. Super slow motion videos are present for the front cameras, and the maximum is 720p at 240 frames per second. But the rear camera can shoot slow motion videos up to 720p at 960 frames per second, which looks pretty cool. The low artificial light video shots are surprisingly clear with good details thanks to Tecno's AI camera algorithm, TAIVOS. Also thanks to the 64 megapixel image signal processor of the Helio T and the Sony IMX686 sensor. Tecno did a good job with the new camera user interface, which is more interactive and pretty easy to use. Swiping up brings out the camera mode, while swiping down brings down the top menu for easy one-handed operation, which is quite thoughtful. Although I would have loved if there were more professional controls in the video mode, but the eye focus technology is a good and useful addition for vloggers. You can also access the full Google Lens options in the camera app. There's also a smart wide-angle selfie mode, which automatically switches to the ultra-wide-angle lens as soon as it detects more faces. On a side note, there's a new short video mode which gives you access to some cool 15 seconds musical video vibes for TikTok or Viscuit. In conclusion, I am really impressed with the good camera quality of the Camon 16 Premier, but I would like Tecno to improve on the video focus hunting, which can be a buzzkill sometimes. Let me know what you think about the significant improvements in the camera quality of the Camon 16 Premier. Thanks so much for watching. Kindly subscribe and turn post notification on to be the first to see the next video. Talk to you in my next video, and remain humble, stay safe, bye.